Cover 2 podcast coming at you live from the OC Rock Radio Studios at Saddleback College. My name is Nick Nedad.
I'm Jared Smith.
And Jared, we got a packed show today. We didn't think we'd have a lot of news today, it being the week before the Super Bowl, but man, the NBA really shot off a couple crazy stories for us today.
They stepped up for us big time.
Absolutely. We got a big trade. We got multiple injuries to multiple star players. When I say star players, I mean some star players. But let's start with that trade. Blake Griffin, Mr. Clipper, traded to the Detroit Pistons. Man, it's the end of an era in LA, isn't it, Jared?
Yeah. And I mean, you know what? End of an era, I don't really know if you can even call it that.
I knew you were going to say stuff
because,
like this.
Like, what did the Clippers actually do?
Well, the Clippers went, since Blake got there, I think it was back in 2010, at least the first year he played. They've been a playoff team really since he joined the team, and they were a mediocre team before that. I mean, there was a couple years in the 2000s where the Clippers slipped into the playoffs as the 8th or 7th seed. But really, when Blake Griffin got there, the Clippers kind of turned their fortunes, and it looked like they were going to be a pretty good team and a force to be reckoned with. Blake Griffin being there brought Chris Paul over. Blake Griffin being there, I think, helped DeAndre Jordan to become the all-star that he's become. So I think an era of Clippers basketball where they were actually competitive and they were actually forced to, at some points, a title contender, although they can never get to the finals, they can never even get past the second round. But this ends an era, and I don't really know where the Clippers go from here. Jared, can you tell me where the Clippers go from here?
Yeah, they quote-unquote tank is exactly what they're trying to do. They listen, Jerry West is now kind of taking over control of the team, right? And sometimes in order to do that, you have to strip everything down and start with nothing in a sense. And I think that is the process that Jerry West is taking here. And obviously, it was a big shock because, listen, in the offseason, Blake Griffin signs that 5-year, $173 million extension, and it's like, okay, he's basically going to be a Clipper for the rest of his life. And then the Clippers kind of get off to a little bit of a rough start, don't really have the start to the season that they expected with the talent that they do have. So Jerry West says, okay, listen, trading time, we're getting closer and closer to the trading deadline. Let's see what we can pull off. I did not suspect that this would happen, but the thing is, sometimes you have to trade a star to get other pieces in return. Yeah. So really, I think the Clippers ended up winning this trade, even though they don't get a player that has Blake Griffin's caliber in return. But what they do get is Avery Bradley, who came up with the Boston Celtics, really known as a defender, but over the years has improved his offensive game. And I think the biggest thing that the Clippers get is a protected first-round pick, 2018, so this year, and then I believe it's a 2019 second-round pick. And I think that's where Jerry West was really leaning towards, was building for the future. One other thing that I think is going to happen, I don't think this is the end of the trading for the Clippers. There's reports that they've got Lou Williams and DeAndre Jordan on the trading block as well. So, like I said, unofficially, I think this team is trying to tank this year and really start over and build. Because, unfortunately, when they had Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, that three-headed monster, so to speak, they still weren't able to get out of the second round of the playoffs. So it's not like, to me, this team still failed. Because when you have that type of talent on paper and you want to be called Lob City and all this other stuff, and you want to take over LA and think that you're a better organization than the Lakers, all this stuff, but yet you don't make it out of the second round of the playoffs and you don't ever go to the NBA Finals, to me that's a failure. That doesn't, now we know that they were god-awful in the 90s and the early 2000s before they did get Blake Griffin and Chris Paul. So yes, from the standpoint of the 1990s and early 2000s Clippers teams, yes, they did take a step forward, but I don't think they ever reached their full potential because they don't have that ring to prove it.
No, I agree with you on that. I'm just saying that there is an era of Blake Griffin because Blake Griffin's been the star on the team. There's been Chris Paul, there's been DeAndre Jordan, but Blake Griffin's always kind of been, when you think about the Clippers, you think about Blake Griffin. Am I right?
I don't know about that, to be honest. I think without Chris Paul, this team is not as good. To me,
I'm not saying that. No, they definitely aren't as good.
Blake Griffin, when he got drafted as the first overall pick, I believe in 2009, out of Oklahoma, he was like a once in a generation player. I mean, his athleticism, the way that he can dunk, just everything about him. It was like, for a guy that size, it was almost unheard of for a guy to be able to do all the things that he could do. And I think now he has gone from a player that you completely build around and a guy that you can say, I'm going to give him the ball and, he's going to go win games for us and he's going to lead us to the playoffs and hopefully lead us to the championship, to now I think he's just a really, really good basketball player. And he's still an all-star, and I think he can definitely still contribute in ways that other guys can't. But I don't think Blake Griffin is in that category anymore of, super elite. He's not Kevin Durant. He's not Russell Westbrook. He's not LeBron James. I don't think he's a guy that if you say, I want to build my team today, who am I going to start with? Blake Griffin's not even like on my list. He's not a guy that I would start my team with anymore. So I think, unfortunately, he's regressed a little bit and taken a step down from that stature that he used to have.
And I think injuries have hurt him on that standpoint, too. And it's interesting, like, you look at the beginning of this year, and the Clippers, they gave away Chris Paul, but they got a lot in return. They had guys like Patrick Beverley, Danilo Gallinari, this Teodosic guy, the point guard. And it looked like, okay, well, they took Chris Paul and they added, like, 3 or 4, and this was before we even thought Lou Williams would be. I'm not even mentioning Lou Williams because I thought he'd just be kind of a guy off the bench. But it did look like, okay, there's some good pieces here. The injuries have hampered the Clippers. I wonder if this trade happens if their roster is really still like fully stacked. If this team has Patrick Beverley at point guard, Danilo Gallinari at small forward, and then you have Lou Williams, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan, that's a pretty good lineup, So it is interesting that they did make this trade so quickly, knowing that they had so many injuries. I personally think this was going to happen either this season anyways, or it was going to happen after the season. This is Jerry West doing his work, and Jerry West, like we've known, he built the Lakers. He drafted Kobe. He got Shaq. He built up the Memphis Grizzlies when the Memphis Grizzlies were a really good team. Let's say 4 or 5 years ago, they had Randolph, they had Gasol, Mike Conley. That's all Jerry West is doing. And then, of course, he's built the monster in Golden State, drafting Klay Thompson, getting Steph Curry, Draymond Green. So this guy knows what he's doing. So if you're a Clipper fan, you have to trust that Jerry West isn't just throwing this team away. And it's not I feel like he's going to turn this team into a better team than they already were, which is obviously a good thing for Clippers fans since they haven't seen past the second round in a while. So it's interesting. I did want to mention though, Tobias Harris comes in this deal too. Fringe All-Star this year, having a really good year for Detroit. You mentioned Avery Bradley, very good starter. And then the other guy that was in the trade, I don't know exactly who he is. I can't pronounce his name. Bobin something. I don't think he's not mainly, he's not one of the main guys in the trade, but you do get another body there. And then of course you mentioned that first round pick. I believe now they have 2 first round picks too, if I'm not mistaken. So it'd be interesting, and they probably will get more if they trade DeAndre Jordan and Lou Williams too. But so
fire sale.
Yeah, exactly. Blake Griffin gone. The Clippers are new, and the Detroit Pistons. Why don't we talk about Pistons? How does this affect the Pistons?
The Pistons, very interesting. Even though I think the Pistons did lose as far as this trade goes, because yes, you do get Blake Griffin. They did also receive Bryce Johnson and Willie Reed. Those two really just, I think those were more salary cap dumps. Yeah. It's like, okay, we'll give you Blake Griffin, but we also need to get these other guys off the books as well. The Pistons right now, because they're in the East, they're never out of the playoff contention.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they're 3 games below 500. They're sitting at 23 and 26, their win-loss record. But it's like they're only 6 games out of first place. You would think a team that is 23 and 26 will be like 10, 15 games out. So who knows? I mean, with them, you pair Blake Griffin with Andre Drummond. You've got Kennard, the lefty 3-point shooter, Luke Kennard from Duke, who's, I think he's shooting like over 40% from 3. So you've got a shooter there. I mean, this team, they are in Cleveland's division. So do we think they're going to catch Cleveland? No.
No.
But can they get past Indiana and maybe, squeak in a 7th or an 8th seed? I think they can. If Blake Griffin can stay healthy and if he can, work well in Stan Van Gundy's system. That's a whole nother issue as well. It's one thing to just plug a player or plug an all-star in, but does he actually fit that system? Does he fit what the Pistons do? I'm really not so sure. Unfortunately, we don't really get to watch the Pistons too much because they are in Detroit, and unless they're on national television, we don't get to see their games. So about Andre Drummond, and that's really, when you think of the Pistons, at least when I think of the Pistons, he's one of the only main players that I think of. So I really don't know. Can the Pistons make the playoffs as a 7th or 8th seed? Yes. Do I think they're going to do anything when they get in the playoffs? No. It's kind of as simple as that for me.
Like the Clippers, too, right?
Like the Clippers,
if
basically.
they make the playoff. Yeah, this trade, to be honest, kind of seems like more of a trade for the future for both of these teams rather than a trade for right now this year. This is not, a title contender picking up Blake Griffin. This is two teams that kind of want to clear space and change the direction of their franchise. One other thing to mention about the Clippers in this trade is it does obviously take a ton of money off the books for the Clippers. So if they wanted to grab free agents this year and stuff like that, since it is a big and really good free agent class, they could do that as well. If let's say they keep DeAndre Jordan, let's say they keep Lou Williams, and let's say they don't trade anybody else, then they can go after some other supplementary players, a possible Paul George. People have mentioned LeBron James, although I don't think that would happen.
Not at all.
Yeah. Although I do believe personally that LeBron with the Clippers would be right away, probably, if they kept those players, would be right away better than LeBron with the Lakers as far as the talent on the team.
Really?
Yeah, I do think those guys are still young with the Lakers, so it does intrigue, it does keep another opening, because you would not have said LeBron before they traded Blake Griffin, but now there's that possibility. That's news to talk about later, though, and I think that's just kind of, anytime a team has an opening at a forward position, everyone's like, they're going to get LeBron next year. So I don't think there's much to talk about there. But yeah, so both these teams going in a different direction, not necessarily for this year, but for the future. Now, let's talk about stuff that's happening this year, and it's going to affect teams this year. Kevin Love broke his hand last night. We're talking about last night as far as Tuesday on the national TV game, the players-only games on TNT. Broke his hand. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. You know what, man? It has been a bad month, I'll say, maybe bad 2 months for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I was going to say bad year for Kevin Love as a whole. Let's get a little more specific there. Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, it's very obviously, for Kevin Love to be out 6 to 8 weeks with a fractured hand, that's not good at all. Do you think this is a blessing in disguise as far as if this is the time for a team to trade for Kevin Love? Now, I understand it's tricky because, listen, if you're trading for Kevin Love anytime soon, he's not going to be able to play right away. But do you think a team could get Kevin Love potentially cheaper because he is injured? Do you think teams might be interested, instead of having to give up multiple players or a first-round draft pick, do you think they say, hey, Kevin Love's injured, we want him, but because he's injured and he's not going to be able to play for 2 months, we can get him for a little cheaper? Does that play?
I have not thought about this at all. So this is a very interesting point you bring up.
Do you think the Cavaliers will buy that, or would they still say, hey, no, we want max deal, we want top dollar for Kevin Love?
It depends on how they think of Kevin Love, and really how LeBron thinks of Kevin Love, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because if LeBron wants Kevin Love, you ain't trading Kevin Love. You know what I'm saying?
You better not if you want to keep LeBron happy.
Exactly. Then LeBron's literally going to the Clippers or Lakers. You can call it next year. But no, it's interesting. If you're a team, why not pick up Kevin Love? It's not like a broken hand's really going to affect you the rest of the year either. As long as he fully rehabilitates it, I don't think a broken hand is one of those lingering injuries. It's not like a knee or an Achilles or something like that, like we'll talk about in a couple minutes as far as injuries go. But yeah, that's very interesting. I have actually thought of this too with the Cavs, with this injury, and this was before this injury even happened. DeAndre Jordan could be an option for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, I do believe that they would have to give up that Nets pick if they wanted DeAndre Jordan, because Jordan, although he is going to be a free agent next year, I believe Jordan has more value right now than some of the other players that the Clippers could trade, and really any other player that the Cavaliers could get on the market for the kind of position they want. And I think DeAndre Jordan would be a good fit now, especially that Kevin Love got hurt in Cleveland, if the Clippers are indeed going to trade DeAndre Jordan. But if that means giving up Kevin Love, I guess that would work. But I hadn't thought about that too much. I don't really have too much of an opinion on it yet.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. And listen, I'm not trying to sit here and say that that's something that teams are going to do. It's, for me, if I was a team interested in Kevin Love, now I would say, okay, he's injured, so could we potentially get him for cheaper? Because that's whatever, in negotiations, that's what you want to do, right? Yeah. You want to win the negotiation. You want to win the trade. So how can we get a all-star caliber player in Kevin Love while giving up the least amount of prospects, right? So whether that be draft picks and or players. So if, like I said, if I'm another team, I would come to the Cavaliers right now and say, all right, this is what we're willing to give up. And then it's the back and forth game of Cleveland, counters and the recounter and all that stuff. So I think that's very interesting. As far as what the injury does specifically for Cleveland, it obviously does not help them. They have gone through their own turmoil the last couple months, literally playing no defense, not looking like the Cleveland Cavaliers of last year and or the year before when they won the championship. And listen, if you listen to some of the players when they're getting interviewed, LeBron James or Isaiah Thomas, I almost feel like they don't know what's going on. They don't know why they can't seem to all get in a rhythm together. It's like LeBron James is basically sitting here trying to just defer everything and say, we're still trying to figure each other out. We're working at it every day. But like those are just very generic answers. Like I don't think they're comfortable with each other yet. I think a lot of that has to do with Isaiah Thomas, and like I'd mentioned before on this podcast, the fact that because he was injured in the offseason and he did not get the opportunity to practice with the team and or be there for training camp, I think that has hurt his growth with the team so far. But realistically, I don't think they have that same chemistry and or that same will like they've had in the past. Cleveland won a championship 2 years ago. LeBron, in a sense, fulfilled his duties by coming back to Cleveland and bringing a championship to that city. Yeah. So I'm not saying that, of course, they want to win. Like, every player wants to win. That's why you play the game. But do they have that same edge that they did before they had a championship? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. So, like, right now, I don't even think this Cleveland team would come out of the East. I think they're playing so bad.
See? I said this last week. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, no, I'm
kind
of jumping on that train. Yeah. I don't think this team right now is built to come out of the East as the Eastern Conference champions. I think you have to give that to the Boston Celtics or another team. I think right now it would be Toronto. I think it would be a sweep. If they play Golden State right now.
Oh, you're saying in the finals?
Yeah, in the finals.
Oh, yeah.
I think it'd be a sweep.
Clearly.
Yeah. So I don't know what the answer is. Can you say anything else? Is there anything else?
No, I mean, I said it last week. I did not think the Cleveland Cavaliers were getting to the finals, and they might not be getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, depending on who they play in that second round. So they need to win as many games as they possibly can to get a higher seed in the East, because they really need it more than any other team. And getting Kevin Love injured does not help. So I personally think they do need to make a trade, and they need to get somebody else. I think a good player would be DeAndre Jordan. Let's move on because we're running a little short on time in this segment. For these next couple of injuries, let's just do this. Big deal or no big deal? Like, is this really going to affect a team's playoff chances or title contention chances with these next couple guys? So, Jared, I'll start with this. Boogie Cousins, big deal or no big deal? Out for the season.
Big deal. He is an all-star caliber player, no question. Him and Anthony Davis together have kind of found a rhythm and found a way to win. Anthony Davis by himself, I don't think he can do it. He's been in the league long enough, and he has not been able to prove that he can lead a team really even to the playoffs on his own. So no Boogie, no playoffs.
Oh, okay.
Big deal.
Yeah, no, I think this is a big deal as well because, man, these two guys, Anthony Davis and Boogie Cousins, were really starting to work well together, and they were really starting to look good. There's a reason they were voted and picked as the two all-star, big men for the West. So, to lose those guys, to lose him is I think is a huge deal for the Pelicans. I don't necessarily think they're not going to make the playoffs, because I do think Drew Holiday's having a great year, and I think as long as Drew Holiday keeps doing what he's doing, they'll make the playoffs. But, man, they're not going to get a high seed like I thought they would, and it's really going to be tough. They have really no chance at the title now, not having that 1-2 punch, because they really did have 3 good players this year, Drew Holiday, Boogie Cousins, and Anthony Davis, and now they only have 2.
Yeah, they're at the 7th seed right now, so it's not like they're sitting pretty.
It's tough.
It's
going to be tough.
They're on that fine line.
But the Clippers, who are the 9th seed, I think are not. That's a tougher for them to make the playoffs, too. All right, Andre Roberson out for the season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Big deal or no big deal?
I don't think it's as big of a deal. They still have the 3-headed monster. They got Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony. So Roberson obviously is more of a defensive player, and there's not enough basketballs to go around for those 3 players anyway. So he has specific duties as far as covering, whether it's covering the opponent's best player, that type of thing, and coming off the bench. So I don't think it's as big of a deal as some might think. I think those 3 All-Stars can pick up the slack left by Roberson.
And I think this is half-half. I think it's no big deal for the playoffs, but big deal to be a title contender. I don't think they really have. With Andre Roberson out, it's going to be very, very tough for the Oklahoma City Thunder to beat a Golden State or to beat a Houston Rockets, because he was their top defender, and they haven't played much defense this year. So I do think this is a big deal in the long-term scheme of the season. I don't think it is short-term. I think they'll still make the playoffs. I think they'll be a higher seed. But playing in those conference championship games or playing in a second-round matchup against one of these good teams, I think it is a big deal. Last one. Actually, I have 2 more. John Wall, injured. I think he's out for a couple weeks. Clean up on his knee. Big deal or no big deal?
Huge deal.
Okay.
Huge deal. Washington, in my opinion, goes nowhere without John Wall.
Wow.
John Wall, I'm very high on John Wall. The Wizards don't get the recognition that I think they deserve, because they play in Washington. I don't think they get a whole lot of nationally televised games as much. And John Wall, in the same respect, does not get the recognition that he deserves, in my opinion. I think he is a top 5 point guard, and arguably the fastest point guard, if not player, in the league. Him with the ball in his hands, he's I mean, it's electric. It's amazing. So no, him out. You still have Bradley Beal, and you have some other. They can still make the playoffs. They're sitting at the 5th seed right now, but no John Wall for 6 to 8 weeks. Is that what they said?
Yeah.
That is, and the thing is, this is his knee as well. So it's not like it's an upper body injury
to
where he can
I was talking about earlier.
Right, to where he can still condition. This is going to take him, even when he does get back on the court. I don't think he's going to be the same player. He's not going to have that same speed. It might take him a couple weeks or a month to get back up to that. So no, I think this is a huge deal.
I actually disagree. I don't think this is that big of a deal, because I think the fact that he's coming back and this is a minor surgery, I don't think this is going to make too much of a difference. And I think Washington is good enough in this East where they could surprise a team, one of those top teams, a Cleveland, a Boston, a Toronto, possibly in the playoffs. If Beal and Wall are playing to their strength and playing like they have this year, being 2 All-Stars, I do think that they could beat really most of the teams in the Eastern Conference. So, no, I don't think it's that big of a deal, just because it's not a major surgery. He's kind of just cleaning up his knee. It's not really an injury. So, I disagree. Number one, do I not think it's a huge deal, but I don't think it's that big of a deal at all. All right, last one. Rob Gronkowski, concussion. I'm just kidding. No, that's going to transition us, though, into our next segment. Hey, Jared, there's this thing called the Super Bowl this weekend, and it's a big deal. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to give our full prediction.
Let's talk about it.
New England Patriots versus Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 52. This weekend, we'll be right back with that NFL segment on the other side of this quick break.
I mean, there's no underdogs in the Super Bowl. They're the first seed in the NFC, man. They're 13-3. I mean, they had an incredible season, so I don't buy into any of that. Could never imagine, being in this position 8 times. To be in it 1 time is a dream come true, and to be here 8 times is unbelievable. And I think I've just appreciated as I've gotten older. Honestly, it's early on, I probably, it just went so fast, and I think I've really relished these experiences and opportunities and try to make the best of them. We lost a couple in 2007 and 2011. We're lucky to, get back and win it a couple other times, but this is the one that matters the most.
Oh, man, I think obviously beating the Patriots is huge, but for me it's about the journey. It's about the men I've done it with. It's about this organization. You go through so much with a team. I've been through a lot with the Eagles, and just to be here to beat the Patriots would be, wonderful.
Our goal is to win it, and I think this team will do a great job of preparing for it. And this week, man, it's really important. We still got a lot of film study to do. Still got a lot of practice to do, and we're looking forward to it.
Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio. Once again, I'm Jared Smith.
And I'm Nick Nenad.
And Nick, like you mentioned before the break, there's this thing called the Super Bowl.
I think it's
coming
a pretty
up this
big
Sunday.
deal, Jerry. In my opinion, I think this is a pretty big deal.
A little bit. I would have to say, out of the 4 major North American sports, the Super Bowl is the biggest deal, biggest championship game of them all. Even if you're not a sports fan or a football fan or even a fan of the 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl,
which most people aren't.
Right. There will be Super Bowl parties all over the place. There will be people lined up at bars. The crazy bets that happen and go on. It's a full circus. So we definitely want to jump in and give you guys the breakdown of who we think is going to win, why we think they're going to win. Nick, I'm gonna turn the table over to you, and let's start breaking down this game.
Well, yeah, and we want to do this kind of in segments because if we just start breaking down the game and stuff, it might get a little flustered. This game is so big that we kind of need to give a full prediction on it, not just give our opinions on who we think is going to win. So we'll just do this. We're going to say who has the best offense, best defense, best coaching, intangibles, special teams, all that, and then kind of give a formal prediction on the score and stuff like that at the end. But so let's start right now. Obviously, the Patriots have been in for they've been in the Super Bowl, it seems like, every single year for the last couple of years. The Philadelphia Eagles have not. They've barely even been in the playoffs. So there is sort of bias with a lot of predictions going on right now that it's hard not to pick the Patriots. But let's start with this. This one's kind of an easy one. The coaching. Jared, I'll let you start. Who has the better coaching, better coaching staff coming into the Super Bowl game?
We even have to talk about this?
That's why I'm saying it first, because we just need to get it out of the way.
Yeah, no, that is, seriously, that's easily the New England Patriots. Yeah. When you have Bill Belichick, arguably, and to me it's not really an argument, the greatest NFL head coach that's ever lived. You have offensive coordinator McDaniels, who's about to become a head coach with the Indianapolis Colts. You have Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator, that's about to become a head coach.
Yeah.
I mean, right there, how many other head coaches under Bill Belichick, or coaches, have become head coaches because of Bill Belichick? He is single-handedly not only the greatest coach because of that, but also because of the way that he relates to his players. He expects a lot from his players, and some guys can't handle that because during the season, it's like, listen, this is your family. I don't care about you going out on weekends. I don't care what you guys have to do. I don't care if you have to sleep in your cars so you're not late for meetings in the morning. He demands everything from your players, from his players. But in the end, the results are he is a multiple-time winning Super Bowl champion coach, and that, at the end of the day, is what you're going to get remembered by. It's not the amount of money you make, or it could be, but for him, it's about winning championships, and winning, solves and cures a lot of problems. So, for me, very easy. The New England Patriots sweep the board when it comes to the coaching.
This coaching comparison is like comparing Michael Jordan to Caron Butler. I mean, it's just, and I'm not saying.
Where did that come from?
I'm not saying.
Butler.
I just thought of a random name.
Wow.
He's on the Players Only broadcast last night, so that's why his name came out. But maybe I should say more of an all-star player. But my point is, this is not even close. Clearly, the Patriots have the better coaching staff. They have 3 head coaches, and the one actual head coach being the best coach of all time. So you cannot get better than that. So obviously, the Patriots coaching staff is great. Nothing against the Philadelphia Eagles coaching staff, but coming into this game, the Patriots coaches are going to know what to do better than the Philadelphia Eagles. They've been in this situation more, obviously, and Doug Peterson has not, and the Eagles players have not. So, I shouldn't say the players because we're talking about coaching staff, but it's just the Patriots are clearly better, so we'll move on. Bill Belichick, no question there. Offensively, who do we think the better team offensively is?
This has a caveat. I'm basing this off of because of Carson Wentz is not playing. If Carson Wentz was playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, I would have a harder time picking this answer. But because he's not, I'm going to easily give it to the Patriots because of Mr. Tom Brady and what he does for that team. He makes average players, a.k.a. Chris Hogan, a.k.a. Danny Amendola, a.k.a. James White, Dion Lewis. I can go on and on. He makes all these guys like superstars.
Yeah, except Chad Johnson.
That didn't work out.
Chad Ochocinco didn't work out.
No, not at all. But, I mean, last year's Super Bowl, White has 3 touchdowns, and he should have been the MVP. Obviously, Tom Brady still got it, but it's like what he's able to do while not having, in a sense, Pro Bowl talent around him is just amazing. And that comes from his preparation, everything from his film study to the way he practices to his diet to his everyday living. It's unreal. So I have to give this one to the Patriots more so easily because Carson Wentz is not there. I think if the Eagles had Carson Wentz, that offense was rolling and putting up 30-plus points a game. But unfortunately without him, I'm going Mr. Brady.
I'm going to disagree in a sense. I'm going to give a lot of credit to this Philadelphia Eagles offense. Nick Foles has played literally the best you possibly could as a replacement for Carson Wentz. He played great in the game last week. He played great in their first playoff game. Their offense with the two-headed running back of Jay Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount is this very, very solid running back tandem. Their wide receivers are great as well. Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar is having a standout year. Their tight end, Zach Ertz, is having a solid year. Their offensive line is good. But the Patriots also have very good offense, and it's because of who they have at quarterback, and it's because of Bill Belichick that they seem to put guys in the best situation. Obviously, you mentioned Chris Hogan, Danny Amendola, and guys like that are very good in this offense. The running backs, White, Dion Lewis, you already mentioned them. They're good in this offense. But who has the better offense, in my opinion, I'm actually going to go with the Eagles. I think the Eagles have the better offense and a better offensive line as well than the Patriots. So I'm going to go slightly. I'm going to give it to the Eagles because I think the system more puts the Patriots over the top than the actual players. So as far as personnel standpoint, I'm going to go with the Eagles. I think the Eagles do have a slightly better offense. It's pretty close, though.
Okay.
So let's move on to defense. I'll go first on this one. Defensively, I'm going to actually go with the Eagles again. I think the Eagles have a better defense. The way they shift their defensive linemen and the talent they have in the defensive line with guys like Fletcher Cox, I mean, he's one of the best defensive players in the league, let alone on the Eagles. And I think that really helps. Their linebacking core is great. Their DBs have gotten so much better from the last couple of years. So I'm going to go. I think the Eagles' defense is better. The Patriots' defense has had some injuries. They're playing a lot of guys that necessarily shouldn't be playing in certain positions. Although the corners have played well this season, I do think the Eagles have a better defense coming in this game. This isn't like the offensive comparison. I think the Eagles just have a better defense.
This is the only category that I'm going to, without a question, give to the Eagles. And I really, this is no question to me. The Eagles defensively, they run a 4-3 defense. They have 4 defensive linemen. And what was when the Giants, both years when they played against the Patriots in those Super Bowls, what was the thing that hurt Tom Brady? It was a good pass rush with 4 defensive linemen and putting 7 guys in coverage. That's exactly what the Eagles do.
Yeah, it is.
They do blitz sometimes, but a lot of times they like to just put 7 guys in coverage and rush 4. And it's obviously been successful so far. I think from a scheme-wise and a talent standpoint, the Eagles clearly have the Patriots beat. The one little thing that I will say about the Patriots is that they're very creative with their scheme. So Bill Belichick, because of the mastermind that he is, he knows how to tweak a system to fit certain players. So Some weeks they will come out and they will run a 4-3 defense, like we just mentioned that the Eagles play. Other weeks they will come out and run a 3-4 defense where they have 3 defensive linemen and 4 linebackers. So they get creative in their scheme, but overall, I think the Eagles clearly have the better defense. Stats-wise, they're definitely way better. And I think the only way the Eagles have a chance in this game is if they get 2 or more turnovers from Tom Brady. So I think it basically this game is on the Eagles defense.
Yeah.
Because the Eagles offense, I don't necessarily trust them enough to come out and score points effectively. I think the Eagles defense is really going to have to keep the Patriots under 20 points in order to win. So one category that I'm going to give to the Eagles.
Yeah. Well, looking at last week, or actually, 2 weeks ago now, but against the Jaguars, that's what the Jaguars did. The Jaguars really put up a good defensive game plan against Patriots, and in really for 3 quarters, the Jaguars successfully beat the Patriots. It just took, once they got into the 4th quarter, late in the 3rd quarter, the Patriots kind of did their thing and realized what was going on. I think the Eagles defense, like you mentioned, that front 7, and specifically those defensive linemen, that pass rush, the way they rotate those players, literally every player that plays for them on that defensive line is a good player, is a solid player. I mean, when you got Chris Long essentially coming off the bench, it's your defense is really good. I have to completely agree with you. I think their defense is better than the Patriots, and this is going to be their big advantage to try to get them a win on Sunday. Let's move to special teams. I'll start with this one too. Special teams is a little harder to pick. I don't think either of these teams has a special teams advantage, so I'm just going to say both. I don't think there's an advantage here. If you can come up with a stat to give me, I'm all for it, and I might change my opinion on this. But I think as far as special teams go, I don't think special teams is going to make a difference as far as their personnel. And what I mean by that is I don't think the personnel on these two teams is you're going to be saying, oh, they're going to cause a bunch of turnovers on special teams, or this guy can't return punts, he can't catch the ball, or they can't kick field goals. I think they can kick field goals. I think their kickoff teams are great. I think their punt teams are great. The 2 punters are solid. And I think the 2 special teams themselves, the actual players, are don't cause a significant amount of turnovers to say that one has better than the other. So I'm going to go both here. I think this is even. I don't see an advantage here. Do you kind of see an advantage here?
Like you mentioned, this one is a little bit tougher because there aren't as many splash plays with special teams. It's really more about good coverage, not giving up a lot of yards per return. So I think this one is a little more even. Do not be surprised if either one of these special teams comes up with a trick play at some point in the game.
That's interesting,
right?
Yeah.
Some type of kind of wacky play to kind of stun and trick the other team. So I'm not saying it's going to be Eagles or the Patriots. I'm just saying I guarantee you both of these special teams coaches and players are putting in a little wrinkle that they maybe haven't shown so far in the regular season or in the playoffs leading up to the Super Bowl, that they, depending on how the game goes, if they need a little spark or if they're at a certain point in the field, they could run a fake run or something like that. So I'm not saying it's going to happen because it's obviously very risky. And a lot of times when you run a fake play on special teams and it doesn't work, you're giving the opponent great field position. So, but sometimes you have to risk it to win. So I would not be surprised if either one of these teams came out and at some point in the game did something like that.
But you're saying that pretty much there's not really an advantage between these two teams?
Not. I mean, it's not like either of these teams have a Devin Hester or a fantastic punt returner.
Or a guy that's been bobbling punts lately.
Right.
Like that.
No, both of these teams I would say are just very average, very solid in their special teams work. Yeah, so unfortunately, nor the Eagles or the Patriots get a one-up on this one.
Okay, and so intangibles. Who has the better intangibles? Who's kind of been here before? Who do we think has the advantage in the intangibles segment?
Of course we have to give this one to the Patriots.
Yeah.
And it's almost laughable because we sit here and we have to answer these questions, but I mean, everyone knows the intangibles. That's super easy. How many times? This is the Patriots' 4th Super Bowl in the last, potentially could be their 3rd win in the last 4 years.
It's like their 15th Super Bowl in the last 10
years.
years.
Basically, this isn't their first rodeo. And the Eagles, this is actually only their third Super Bowl appearance in franchise history. They are 0-2 so far. They last met against the Patriots when Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens were leading the Eagles. They obviously did lose that game as well. So this one is easily given to the Patriots with just their the way that they've been to this thing more than once, their familiarity with this. Another thing that I think goes underlooked leading up to the Super Bowl is like the preparation and when teams actually get in. Know, when do you fly in? Do you fly in a full 7 days before? Do you fly in 6 days before? What's the practice schedule like? Do you try to keep things routine, just like a normal week during the regular season? Obviously, there's a lot more media coverage, all that. So there's a lot of little nuances that go into this that players have to deal with. Obviously, family members and people coming out of the woodworks wanting to get tickets for the game. So how do players handle that? How do they put that distraction aside and try to just focus on the game? So I think those little things that don't really get talked about a whole lot play a big factor in this. Obviously, the Patriots players, at least the ones who have been around for a couple of years, are more used to this as opposed to the Eagles, who I don't believe there's many players other than Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount, both former Patriots, who have
from last year,
who have really been through this. So I think this is going to be new to these a lot of these Eagles players, and I think it's something that they're going to have to deal with more so than maybe the Patriots are a little better at.
Yeah, no, and that's the definition of intangibles. Just saying the Eagles have two guys that have been in the Super Bowl, and those two guys were in the Super Bowl last year with the Patriots, kind of proves the point that the Patriots have more intangibles, clearly. And the fact they were in it last year, and the fact they've been in it for the last 75 years, essentially. The intangibles clearly go to New England. I don't need to say anymore. Jared pretty much got it. So we've now gone through the kind of elements of each team. Who do we think is going to win? You want to go first? Okay, I'll go first. I do think it's going to be the New England Patriots. Sorry, guys. I think it's the New England Patriots. Unfortunately, who I want to win, I'm not still sure who I want to win, to be honest. I don't have the fandom of the Cowboys like Jared says, or like Jared has, so I don't have a hate toward the Eagles. I don't like them, but I don't like the Patriots either. So I don't know who I want to win yet. Maybe I'll come up with it at the end of the podcast who I want to win. But for right now, I do think the New England Patriots will win. I'm gonna go actually a high-scoring game. I'm gonna go 35-31.
Wow.
New England Patriots get the win. No overtime this year like last year.
I want the Patriots to win. The Patriots are going to win. There's no doubt in my mind the Patriots are going to win. The Eagles have no chance to win. They might as well not even show up. If you didn't get the hints, I'm not an Eagles fan, nor will I ever be. I'm a Cowboys fan, and I cannot stand to see the sight.
60-0?
Yeah, 100-0. I cannot stand to see the sight of the Eagles holding that Lombardi Trophy. So, yes, I do realistically and seriously think that the New England Patriots will win because of those intangibles and because I think I cannot go against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick unless my Cowboys were playing. So, I think the Eagles will put up a good fight. They're obviously here for a reason.
Yeah.
Nick Foles, in the last couple weeks, has proven that he's deserved to get here. He is, especially in that whooping against the Minnesota Vikings a couple weeks ago. The offense can still click, and they've got great receivers, and they, a good running back couple, two-headed monster with LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi. So they do have weapons, and I think this game will be closer than some expect. But in the end, I think the Patriots will come home with another Lombardi Trophy. So my final score is going to be 27-20.
Okay, you got a little lower scoring.
A little lower, yeah. I think a lot of times, especially in the first quarter of a Super Bowl, sometimes teams are a little hesitant to come out and try a deep pass or try a trick play. I think it takes a little bit of time to get the feel in for the game. There's obviously a lot of butterflies and jitters going on and all that stuff, and you don't want to make an early mistake. So I can see the game being a little slow pace, and towards the end of the first quarter, into the second quarter, I think that's when things will pick up, and you'll start to see both teams hopefully get into somewhat of a rhythm and settle down, have their nerves settle down. So, a little bit of a lower score, but in the end, Patriots 27-20.
Yeah, so that's our predictions. Should be obviously a fun game to watch. I don't think there's a clear... I don't think the Patriots will blow them out, and I don't think the Eagles will blow the Patriots out, so this should be a good game. And that Minnesota Stadium should put on a great setting for the Super Bowl as well. So we got about, let's say, 4 or 5 minutes left in the segment. We want to do something fun here because there's not only just a game to watch here on this Super Bowl Sunday. You have to be prepared. And by being prepared, it's the type of food. It's the type of drinks you have.
Hey.
If you are throwing a party, you want to listen to us right now because we got a scoop on what you really should bring. Here's some good foods and some good drinks to bring. Obviously, beer and alcohol is good drinks, but besides that, we'll go with the food. Jared, why don't you start us off?
Yeah,
you have the screen.
Very interesting stat. Pulled up ABC News, and it says that Americans are expected to consume 1.35 billion wings.
Oh, man, that's a billion with a B.
Billion wings on Sunday. That's a lot. It's a lot of chicken. It's a lot of wings.
Yeah, that is. It's a lot of chickens getting murdered.
And then and people were supposed to spend around $49 million on dips. Man, some
and that's not like
dips
chewing tobacco dip.
No,
that's like dips like ranch.
We're talking 7-layer dips here.
Oh,
so we've got wings. There's a million different ways you can do it. You can do fried wings. You can do buffalo wings, right? You can do Thai style wings, oven roasted. Basically, there's a lot of different wings you can have going on here. You've got sliders in the mix.
Another good, that's a good one.
Sliders. You can do the traditional hamburger and hot dog, right? What else? We can do like a ribs. A little barbecue going on.
Exactly.
With some coleslaw and potatoes, and I'm not a fan of mac and cheese, but if that's your thing,
you're not a
then
fan of
that's
mac
fine.
and cheese?
I do not eat cheese.
This is a bombshell here.
Yeah, there's no mac and cheese. There's no nachos. There's no quesadillas. There's no mozzarella sticks. There's nothing like that in my diet. I'm sorry. I do not mean to offend anyone out there.
Okay, so it's because of the diet. It's not because you hate mac and cheese.
Oh no, it's because I hate cheese.
You hate mac and cheese. You hate cheese.
I do. So cheese will not be in my Super Bowl
Jared's
diet.
party is,
yeah, don't come to my party.
No cheese.
I'm not having a party, but if I did, there would not be any cheese at my
There's
party.
people, here's the thing with Jared now. Now that he says he doesn't like cheese, people are going to not invite him to stuff if they have cheese now. So he's going to learn.
I mean, I don't have anything against people that do like cheese. I just personally don't like it.
You're just not going to eat the cheese.
Yeah, just don't put it in my face. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So I would say my favorite Super Bowl food would have to be sliders. I love sliders. They're easy. You don't have to sit down with a fork and a knife and sit down at a table. You can pick one up. Go stand in front of the TV with a drink in one hand and a slider in the other hand, and multitask in a sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm all about multitasking. So I would have to go with sliders as being my best Super Bowl food. What would you?
It's funny. I don't really have a favorite Super Bowl food. I love the fact that like people make a lot of food on these kind of days.
Oh yeah,
I'm actually
it's
good.
A buffet style.
Honestly, just with like the types of chips and dips everyone puts out. That's kind of my favorite part of a Super Bowl weekend. Just the fact that everyone gets a lot of food ready. There's appetizers. There's meals. I'm used to just hot dogs and hamburgers, to be honest. So I would probably have to say that's my favorite. But just having a lot of food is fun for me.
I do want to say one thing. Listen, people, I understand it's a new year, 2018, right? Everyone's got their new diet plans and all that stuff. It's the Super Bowl, so I'm scrolling down here and I see a roasted cauliflower.
No, not only roasted cauliflower.
Salad.
It's Chrissy Teigen's roasted cauliflower.
Yeah, I don't think any type of salad should be a part of a Super Bowl party. I'm sorry. It's a Sunday. It's one day to splurge. Have a drink. Have some pizza or nachos or wings or whatever it is that is your cheat meal. Live it up. Party. Have a good time. I do not want to see any type of salad. There will be no salad. Nor will there be a Chrissy Teigen salad in my diet on Sunday. I'm sorry. I'm taking the day off.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have enough more time for this segment, but there's a couple options. Obviously, Jared likes the sliders. That's a good option. Hamburgers and hot dogs is always a good one. And no cheese if Jared is coming over to your Super Bowl party. Yeah. Hey, we got another fun segment coming up next. It's our usual segment. It is called Do You Care? Do You Care? Yeah. Okay, so no Super Bowl talk necessarily on Do You Care, but we're going to have some interesting things, including possible competition for the NFL in 2020. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, boy.
We'll be back on the Cover 2 podcast with Do You Care?
It goes down right here in the West Coast Iron Paradise. Now, a lot of you guys know the love and respect that I have for the sweet science, the sport of boxing. So when HBO called me and said, Rock, we want you to make an announcement to the world for one of the biggest boxing matches of all time, I said I'd be honored, but I got to do it my way. They said, you got it. So world, here is the historic announcement from the jabroni beating, pie eating, trailblazing, eyebrow raising, 12 rounds wasn't enough. The world is going to see the rematch to settle it all. Canelo versus Triple G.
But there was some thought that there's no way Kyrie Irving will wind up on LeBron's team, but Kyrie Irving is on your team, and Kevin Love is on your team. What is it about your team that you like the most, and how did the Kyrie situation present itself for you?
I mean, I just try to pick the best available players, and to be able to team up back with Kyrie. It's always special, and along with Kevin Love, just, for us to have another weekend to bring back some of the memories that we had when we were all together. So, Kyrie was available on the draft board. He's one of the best point guards that we have in our league. So, it was an easy choice for me.
The new XFL will kick off in 2020. And quite frankly, we're going to give the game of football back to fans. I'm sure everyone has a lot of questions for me, but I also have a lot of questions for you. In fact, we're going to ask a lot of questions and listen to players, coaches. We're going to listen to medical experts, technology executives, members of the media, and anyone else who understands and loves the game of football.
Welcome back to the Cover 2 podcast. And Jared, do you know what time it is right now?
What time is it, Nick?
It's time for Do You Care? Our favorite segment on the show. We do it every single week. We don't miss a week of doing this unless something crazy happens during our podcast, which, rarely happens. So, Jared, might as well just get right to it, right? It's Super Bowl weekend. We should probably get these done. I'll start with you. Jared, do you care that Eagles fans and players are not welcome in Minnesota?
Do I really care? No. I think it's hilarious. So supposedly, who knows? If I was a fan of the Eagles and I was trying to get a reservation, whether at a hotel or a restaurant, I probably wouldn't say that I'm an Eagles fan unless you just show up, right, in Eagles gear or something. But the Eagles players are supposedly having a very hard time getting dinner reservations in Minneapolis. I don't think a lot of fans and people that live in Minneapolis are very happy with the shellacking that the Eagles gave their team a week ago. Plus the fact that, and I mentioned this last week as well, a few of the idiot Eagles fans that were throwing full beer cans at some of the Minnesota Vikings fans as they were walking into the stadium. So I think that has something to do with it. Obviously you can't sit here and say that every Eagles fan is bad just because of a couple dumb idiots. But the perception of Eagles fans in general is not necessarily the greatest. I mean, listen, they boo Santa Claus, okay? So these guys aren't really, the loving type of fans that maybe some other organizations and teams have. So I don't really care, but I do think it is very funny, and I think there's a lot of takeout and potentially a lot of McDonald's and fast food going on for some of these Eagles players because they can't seem to get into these fancy restaurants like the Patriots are probably able to get into. Nick, do you care that Vince McMahon is bringing back the XFL?
I have to care about this. Yes, the XFL is coming back. I do care because it should be interesting to see what Vince comes up with this time. The first installment of the XFL did not work out that well. It was a different type of football. It was a way more dangerous type of football. You can't really do that now. Vince, from his little press conference he did, kind of made it seem like this is going to be a completely different XFL from the last one. It's going to be a lot cleaner. He actually mentioned that they're not going to have any players with criminal records. So not even a DUI will get you in this league. So Johnny Manziel probably won't be playing in this league, unfortunately, even though I think you could capitalize on that a lot. Unfortunately, they're not going to do that. So more like a guy like Tim Tebow will have a chance to resurrect his career in the XFL. But a couple other rule changes. I think he wants to make it shorter and stuff like that. But yeah, I care because if there's some competition in the NFL, it just means more sports for us to talk about, more sports for us to watch, and more entertainment for people to experience. So yes, I do care about this, and it should be interesting to watch the next 2 years to see what happens. But hey, 2020, that's when McMahon said that he would try to start the league. So that's pretty soon. Obviously 2 years literally from now. And I think he said he wants to start it in January and February. So it'd be right when the NFL is kind of coming to an end. But so we would pretty much go from one football season to the other. But I'm interested. Interested to see what the XFL does. Jared, do you care that Chief Wahoo, the Cleveland Indians logo for, I believe since 1948, is being removed now from the Cleveland uniforms and Cleveland paraphernalia?
Yes, I do. This is obviously a huge topic and goes way beyond sports and baseball as far as being a very controversial topic and logo. Also, the Washington Redskins in the NFL have gotten a lot of heat from fans and other people, organizations wanting them to remove the Redskins name and title because of the negative effect that it has had on people. So this has really nothing to do with baseball and a lot to do with I'm sorry, not the actual sport, but more to do with Major League Baseball basically saying they do not feel it is right to have this logo recognize Major League Baseball anymore. It does not stand for what Major League Baseball is, and I think they've heard enough from fans and from organizations that they feel that it's time. This is 2018, so a lot of people have a voice, and obviously there's enough people who have voiced their opinions negatively about this to where it has become more of an issue. The interesting thing that I was just reading is the Cleveland Indians will still sell merchandise with this logo on it after 2019. So
interesting. I did not know that.
I'm not 100% positive after 2019, but I know that they're going to continue for this full season to do that. And then after that, I believe they still are going to. So I think that is interesting that even though they will have to come up with a new logo, that they could potentially still sell this old product. I think that's a little dicey, and I'm not sure that's a good strategy for marketing purposes and just in general. You're trying to send a message that you're trying to move in the right direction, in a different direction, but yet you still are going to sell the merchandise. I'm not so sure about that. So yes, I do care because this is a very big deal and something that is way bigger than baseball and sports. Nick, sticking with baseball, do you care that the Brewers have been in the headlines lately, signing Lorenzo Cain and picking up Christian Yelich?
I do care because this is a year this year coming up in the MLB where there's a lot less parity than there has usually been. You can kind of predict almost right now, and even though there's a lot of free agents still on the market, you can kind of predict right now who's going to win each division. You got the Dodgers in the West, Houston in the West, in the AL. You can pretty much predict that the Nationals will win their division, the Cleveland Indians will win their division. So there's a lot less parity in the league right now. Chicago Cubs in the NL Central, the Brewers division. But the Brewers are making a fight for the playoffs. They're one of the few teams this offseason that have actually signed a big free agent in Lorenzo Cain and added some depth to their team. So yeah, I do care. As much parity as you can possibly get in sports is better for everybody. We see it in the NBA right now. There's not a lot of parity, and a lot of people complain. So I always love the fact that baseball has a lot of parity. It doesn't look like it has right now, but a team like the Brewers trying to improve and adding 2 all-star players, 2 all-star outfielders to an already stacked outfield. It should be interesting to see what they do, but nonetheless, they're going for it, and they do still need to add a starting pitcher. But an outfield of Ryan Braun, Lorenzo Cain, and Christian Yelich sounds pretty good to me. So good for the Brewers and good for the MLB as a whole, having another team go for it. Jared, do you care that the NBA All-Star games were picked? Or, excuse me, the All-Star game rosters were picked by LeBron James and Steph Curry last week.
Yes, I do. Like we mentioned on last week's show, the NBA is going to a new format, trying to get a little spark in the All-Star game. So they chose LeBron James and Stephen Curry, two of the most recognizable faces in the NBA, to basically be captains and choose their team. So there's no more East versus West. This is, you're on the playground and you're picking guys to play. So very interesting. I'm going to give LeBron James the nod as having the better team. His original starting lineup was obviously himself, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins, obviously, like we mentioned, has torn his Achilles. He's out for the year. So Paul George is taking his place in that starting lineup. That's still a very lethal lineup, and I think it's a better lineup than what Steph Curry has. I would have loved to see Russell Westbrook in that starting lineup. I would have put Anthony Davis as the center, quote-unquote, LeBron James as the power forward, Kevin Durant as the small forward, Russell Westbrook as the shooting guard, the two guard, because really he's so interchangeable and so versatile that even though he's the point guard on the Oklahoma City Thunder, he really is a two guard. And then I would have Kyrie Irving as the point guard. I think that lineup is like, I don't think they could ever lose. ever lose a game. So that is that starting lineup for LeBron. Steph Curry's team, it's not like they're bad, obviously. They've got DeMar DeRozan, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Giannis Antetokounmpo. How did I say it? How is it?
I think it's Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo?
Yeah,
okay, sorry for butchering that.
I could be wrong, too.
And then obviously Steph Curry. So that lineup is obviously very lethal as well. I just feel that they're a little bit younger. When you've got DeMar DeRozan, his first All-Star game, his first All-Star start. Joel Embiid, same thing, his first All-Star game. Giannis, was he in the All-Star game last year?
I think so. I think he usually donates if they've been. I guess this one. Well, yeah, no. So you look on the side. So he's second.
Oh, second.
Yeah,
okay.
Second. Yeah.
And then Steph, even though he's been in the league for a while, he's just got that baby face. So I just still feel like he's really young.
Oh, yeah.
James Harden.
When he's 40, he's still good.
Yeah. So Team Steph is obviously very good, but they're just very young. So who knows? I think it'll be an interesting matchup. I think one of the main reasons why the NBA chose to do this was they wanted to get a little more defense in the game, and actually a little bit more of an NBA game as opposed to teams playing no defense and just putting up 200 points. So we'll see how it goes. I think it's very interesting, and I think for the most part these teams are both very fair. So I will definitely be tuning in to watch, and it should be a good game. Nick, final question of the segment. Do you care, and I know you do, that Triple G and Canelo are having a rematch on Cinco de Mayo?
Yeah. I mean, these two guys had a great fight. The first time they fought, it was way better than that Mayweather-McGregor fight as far as a actual boxing match. The spectacle might not have been as big, but this is obviously needed to happen. Triple G kind of got screwed, and actually both of them got screwed. It was a draw last time. There wasn't an actual winner. So now we'll get a true rematch and see if we can actually get a winner from this leg of this rivalry. These are the two best boxers in the world right now, and they're close enough in weight to where they actually can box each other. So this is great. I can't wait for this already. They obviously Triple G getting his undefeated record kind of tarnished with that draw, I think will affect him. I can't make an early prediction right now because there's just too much time and you don't know what will happen in the long run. But yeah, no, I'm definitely excited about this fight, and I'll definitely be watching it too. So yeah, I think that's it for Do You Care?
Yeah,
we don't have any
good
more
segment.
questions.
Very quick.
Exactly, it was very quicker than usual. We will go to break, obviously, right now because we have nothing else to talk about in this segment, and we will be right back. We're going to have an interesting segment next. We're going to be kind of talking about a lot of different sports. I'll explain it to you when we come back from the break. We'll be back in about 5-6 minutes here on the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio.
Well, the Calgary Flames and Jaromir Jagr are working on an exit. And, there's a certain amount of respect that he has earned and deserves to have. And Calgary is trying to give it to him. His agent, Peter Svoboda, has been given permission to talk to every other team in the league to see if there's a fit for him. At this time, there isn't. We'll see, Chris, what the future is, maybe somewhere else. But his time in Calgary is about done, and they're just trying to figure out how they're going to go about it.
I don't think it's a great move or even a good move for Washington because I believe all you've done, Skip, is that you're on the market for a new car, and all you did was get an older version of the car that you had. It's hard for me to believe at the best, at the absolute best, all Washington did was a lateral move. It's hard for me to believe that Alex Smith is better than Kirk Cousins.
Cover 2 podcast back on OC Rock Radio for our final segment of the show. And Nick, we have a new segment here called Cover 5. I'm going to let you explain this one.
Yeah, this is Cover 5. We're going to be covering topics pretty much from the sports that we didn't talk about much on the podcast for 5 minutes. So we're going to cover 5 minutes of a story in each of the next 4 sports. We're going to be talking about the NFL, MLB, college basketball, and the NHL. We have 4 stories that we want to discuss there. So we'll start it off. And we only can go 5 minutes, so we're not going to go over. We might go a little bit under. That's probably won't do that.
5 minutes, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, 5 minutes, ding, ding, ding. We'll start right now at the 11:22 mark. Alex Smith, Jared, has been traded to the Washington Redskins. Bombshell NFL news. Your quick take on it first.
I am laughing, and at first, I wanted Kirk Cousins to stay with the Redskins long term because he is so mediocre. Like during the regular season,
this is some NFC East stuff.
No. He is so mediocre that during the regular season, he's going to put up 350 yards and he's going to score 3 or 4 touchdowns and he's going to look great and he's going to say you like that and he's going to want his $100 million contract. But in the playoffs, he's going to choke and he's not going to do well, and he's proved that over the last couple of years. And now they basically are getting another player who is almost done the same thing. Now, he doesn't put up the type of yards that Kirk Cousins does, but Alex Smith is a very good, serviceable quarterback. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot, but he also has not really done much in the playoffs. I believe one of his last few years with the San Francisco 49ers, the team that he got drafted by, he surprisingly, that was the game that they beat the New Orleans Saints, and they were able to advance there. But really, the last couple of years of the Kansas City Chiefs, they have not been able to advance. And listen, at some point when you're the quarterback in the National Football League, you have to be able to lead your team. So it's very interesting. I think the Redskins lost this this trade because of what they had to give up, and I'm going to let you explain what they did give up.
Yeah, they gave up Kendall Fuller, a great cornerback, obviously from the Redskins, and I believe it's a third-round pick, too. Third-round picks are pretty good in the NFL. So they gave up a lot for Alex Smith, a kind of older quarterback, not a younger quarterback. They obviously don't have confidence in Kirk Cousins. So, this is an interesting trade. I think Kendall Fuller going over to Kansas City is going to make a big difference for them, almost as big of a difference as Alex Smith's going to make in Washington, because I think I kind of agree with you. Alex Smith and Kirk Cousins kind of seem like the same quarterback. I will say that Alex Smith is a better quarterback, in my opinion, than Kirk Cousins, but it's close. And Kirk Cousins is also younger, so I believe they signed him to an extension, right? The contract was huge.
It was like 4 years, $90 million.
Yeah, I'm bad at math, but I think this is like $18 million something, right? That he's gonna get.
It's around there.
That's a lot. That's a lot
of cash.
Yeah, that's a lot of millions of dollars. But so obviously they weren't willing to shell out 20 something for Kirk Cousins, but they're willing to sell out 18 for a. $18 million for an older quarterback and a corner and a third-round pick. Interesting. I personally think the Chiefs won this trade. We've been talking about trades a little bit with the Blake Griffin trade, but I personally think the Chiefs won this trade. What's your thoughts on Kendall Fuller coming over? You got about a minute too.
Yeah, no, Kendall Fuller is an exceptional corner, and especially for how young he is in this league. He came out of Virginia Tech. I believe there's like 3 Fuller brothers in the NFL, 2 or 3.
I thought there was.
There's Kyle Fuller, who's a cornerback for the Chicago Bears. Obviously Kendall Fuller, and I believe they have another younger brother who I believe is either also at Virginia Tech or he's in the NFL. I mean, that family is just NFL made. So obviously he through Virginia Tech, and then obviously being able to practice with his brother. He's a very, very good corner coming out. He dealt with some injuries when he did come out into the draft, which is why I don't think he got as much hype as he deserves. But through his play last year with the Redskins, he definitely proved that he can be a starting corner. So that, the Redskins still have Josh Norman, but who is going to replace Fuller now? Because he can not only play outside, but he plays in the slot. He's very, very versatile.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because the Redskins gave up their second good corner that helped their defense, and now the Chiefs get that. They got Marcus Peters and Kendall Fuller. That is one of the best corner tandems in the league. So should be interesting to watch. Real quick, Jared, because I was actually wrong. We have about 45 seconds right now. Do the Redskins make the playoffs this year with Alex Smith?
No.
Okay. I think they will. It is tough in the NFC, but I think they will. Do you think the Chiefs make the playoffs without Alex Smith, with Patrick Mahomes?
That is very, very tough. I mean, I think they can, because I think Patrick Mahomes has a better arm, and I think they will be able to open up the offense a little more. And then, who knows? At the beginning of the year, I thought the Raiders were going to be one of the best teams in the league, and they turned out not to. The Broncos, who knows what their situation is? They're losing some guys on defense, and they're, they don't have a quarterback. So I think they can, but very, very interesting with a young, almost second-year quarterback.
Switching segments, going to the MLB. We got some rule changes, specifically with the All-Star game, and then one that doesn't have to do with the All-Star game. Jared, explain, because I think you know more.
Yeah, the potential rule change with the All-Star game is the baseball. They want to speed up the All-Star game, essentially. So obviously, they want fans to enjoy the game and have a good time, but they don't want players to get injured. And it seems like some of these All-Star games in recent years have gone into extra innings. So what they're talking about doing is, if the game goes into extra innings, immediately putting a guy on second base, basically to speed up.
And they did this with the World Baseball Classic last year, which was extremely successful. So obviously the game doesn't count, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
They talked about this rule change for actual play in extra innings.
I don't like that.
I don't like that necessarily either, because baseball is one of those sports where a lot of the traditions, it'd be hard to take a tradition like, let's play the game till it ends. That's a hard tradition to kind of end. Obviously hockey does a good thing with the shootouts and the 3-on-3, but that kind of needed to happen because a lot of the games weren't ending in overtime. There's really no point for the overtime. Teams were kind of just playing for the shootout. So they changed the rule to play 3-on-3 in overtime. If they did that for baseball, it would really affect the game, and it would really kind of change the game. And I don't think if you're making a rule change, if you want to change the game that extremely. So All-Star game, I personally think it's okay, because that's just a fun game. You kind of want to get it over with after a while.
It's an exhibition.
Exactly. So I'm okay with it. What's your take on it?
Yeah, no, I'm okay because it's an exhibition. The last few years, the All-Star game was very meaningful because the conference that won would get home field advantage.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a big deal, and I would not be okay with if the game did go into extra innings, essentially speeding up the game and putting a guy on second base for that. But because it's an exhibition game, I'm totally okay with it. I don't think fans would have a huge dilemma or a huge problem with it. I'm sure the players would be okay with it, because as much as I'm sure they do enjoy those all-star festivities and all that stuff, they really just want to get out of that weekend healthy and probably get back home and get a couple days off to rest, because obviously baseball season is very long, being that it's 162 games. And basically, if you're there for that All-Star weekend, you're not getting a break, unlike the majority of the other players who get that week off. So I think, for those players, they want to be able to play the game, be healthy, get home, and have a couple days to rest, as opposed to, potentially getting injured just because they had to play an extra 2 innings or something like that.
Exactly.
So,
I totally agree, especially when you get to that point where the pitchers start kind of running out in All-Star game too. Right. Because guys are only going 1 innings besides the starter. So you're going to run out of pitchers eventually, so this rule kind of just does help with that too. And then the other rule change, this is a better one, I think. It will explain.
Yeah, so this other rule change comes after there's been a lot of controversy, mainly last year, but it's been kind of, in whispers the last couple years, to where it's been reported that a lot of teams have been stealing signs from other teams. And listen, do I think this is personally anything new? No, I think this happens in every sport, and it's called film study. I think it's a part of that. Unfortunately, when teams lose, they want to blame people and or have a reason
Sox.
right for a reason of why they're losing. So you blame it on injuries, or you blame it on other players, or you blame it on other teams trying to steal your signs. So what Major League Baseball is proposing is that they want to tap in to both dugouts during the games, all dugouts, and anytime the manager calls to the bullpen, Major League Baseball wants to be able to hear that conversation. They feel that this would help regulate, teams from not stealing other teams' signs. Also, Major League Baseball would then have a record of every conversation, so they'd be able to go back to their history and say, all right, this game on this date, this is what was recorded, this is what was said, and that type of thing. So I think it's very, very interesting. I'm not exactly sure the nuances and the ins and outs of how it would work, but I think at the end, I don't think it's a big deal that teams steal signs, because, like I was telling you during the break, you could have a hand signal, right? Like putting five fingers up for one game, and it could mean one thing, like steal a base, and then you could have that same signal for another game, and it could mean pretend to steal, or you can change the sign. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's just a part of sports, and unfortunately, I think the sore losers need to get over it.
I guess it's quick. NFL changed. I think they listen on the call, so why doesn't the MLB? It just makes sense. Moving on, college basketball. Just kind of want to discuss for the next 5 minutes the rankings and who we think is kind of moving forward in the pack. There's a lot of teams in the rankings right now with one loss or two losses, but there's a lot of teams with 3 or 4 losses. It just doesn't seem like a lot of teams are pulling from the pack. Jared, do you have a team that you've kind of thought of as a team that you really think is going to continue to be one of the top teams in college basketball?
Yeah, and that would be Virginia.
Okay.
They're right now sitting at number 2. The Cavaliers have been very, very impressive this year. They're 20-1.
They're the most impressive Cavaliers this year in basketball.
Ooh, a little shot at Cleveland,
100% it's a shot at Cleveland.
Yeah. But the Virginia Cavaliers, they just beat Duke at Duke a couple nights ago. It was a very close game. I believe they only won by 2. But Duke, in my opinion, on paper, is the most talented team in college basketball.
Oh, yeah.
So for Virginia to go into Duke and beat them, I think was very, very impressive. They've got a couple heavy games coming up. They play Louisville, Syracuse, Florida State, who's got a lot of length. So it's a pretty tough schedule in that ACC. But I think Virginia is one of those teams that not that many people talk about. If you're not a huge college basketball fan, like obviously you talk about Duke and Kentucky and all those, Kansas and all those teams. But Virginia is very, very under the radar, in my opinion. I think they're going to get a number 1 seed in the tournament, and I would not want to play Virginia in the tournament at all.
Dude, does Virginia play Duke another time this season, or is it one of those situations?
I believe that they play them twice because they're in the same conference. So yes, they do. I believe this was the first matchup a couple days ago. So I believe that they still get a home game against Duke, and that doesn't come until. Oh wait, I'm sorry.
No, they don't.
They don't. That was the.
So now, see, this is where I still think Duke. I think Duke is ahead of the pack here in college basketball. I think Virginia beat them, but this is one of those scenarios where I think Duke's still the better team. I would actually expect for 2 ACC teams to possibly have number 1 seeds this year. Yeah,
Duke and Virginia.
Duke and Virginia, because I think these 2 teams are really good. I also want to bring up the fact, and we're going to talk about this eventually when all the facts come out. Michigan State is number 5 right now, and obviously there is a lot of turmoil going on with the gymnastics stuff and the Larry Nassar stuff in the Michigan State hallways, and guys are getting fired. So I'm interested to see how Michigan State's basketball team handled this, because Tom Izzo's been hounded with questions the last couple weeks about this, and he's not really doing a good job of answering them. So I'm wondering if it's going to start affecting their play. If I had to pick one team that would kind of start dropping out, it would be Michigan State, simply for those reasons. But as far as 2 teams that I think are playing really well, or just teams that I think are playing really well and are moving ahead of the pack, I think Virginia and Duke are 2 teams to watch, especially since their game was so good the other night. Their game was so good the other night, and it just proved both teams are good. So still got about 2-something minutes left in the segment. So was there any other teams that we wanted to mention? Let's get back into those rankings. I just want to see something real quick.
You know what's very interesting?
Yeah.
the fact that you have
Rhode Island. Rhode Island's in there.
Yeah, Kansas and Kentucky, two like perennial.
You need to talk about Kentucky.
Two perennial college basketball programs, right? When you think of college basketball, you have to think of them as at the head of the list, along with Duke. Kentucky right now is sitting at number 21 at 16-5, and John Calipari. I believe I talked about this a couple weeks ago on the show, and I wanted to bring it up quickly again. I think Calipari is having a little bit of a tougher time attracting recruits.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. Obviously, that program has been very, very successful. They're in the tournament as the number 1 and number 2 seed almost every year exclusively. But this year, they've already lost 5 games, and right now they would not be a number 1 seed. I believe they'd be like they'd be a 2 or 3 seed.
Oh no, they definitely would be number 1 seed.
Yeah,
no
so
way.
Very interesting. I'm very curious as to if you have thoughts as to why like this year Duke for next season. I'm sorry, not this.
It's not next season either. They're going to be not that good next season either.
Yeah, for Duke, they just landed the number 1, number 2, and number 3 overall recruits, and then Calipari came out and had a huge issue with that, kind of stating was that all within the rules of play, and basically I think he was just upset and jealous that he was not able to land those recruits. Yeah. So I'm not sure what's going on over there in Kentucky, but they're not having the type of season that most expected.
No, they definitely aren't, and Duke is looking really good for the next couple years. I know you like that because you're a Duke fan. We got to move on. Last 5-minute segment. NHL, a little bit of NHL news. Jaromir Jagr, released by the Calgary Flames, put on irrevocable waivers.
Oh.
I got the word out. There you go. And he's now signing with a team in the Czech Republic. That's his hometown. He represents the Czech Republic in the Olympics every year. What's interesting, I didn't even think about this. I wonder if he could join the Olympics now, the Olympic team, because he's not playing in the NHL anymore. With the NHL,
potentially.
Yeah, so that's actually interesting to look at. But we kind of want to just talk about Jaromir Jagr's legacy. He's probably not going to play in the NHL again after this. So this is kind of the end, not the end of him playing hockey, because he's clearly going back to the Czech Republic to play, but Jaromir Jagr, a legend in the game, one of the best players to ever play. It seems like this is like his 25th year in the league.
Well, he's 45, and when did he start playing? When he was...
It had to have been in his early teens, maybe
19?
Not his early teens, his late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, I think it was 19.
Yeah, oh my gosh, so long.
It's
he
amazing.
did take a break from the NHL, though, for a while, too.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, just, I'll let you go first, because I know you don't know as much about hockey, so I'll let you kind of give your legacy on Jaromir Jagr first.
Just reading quickly, the one interesting thing that I got out of this article was the fact that he owns this team that he's going to be playing for.
I didn't know that. That's
so
hilarious.
that's pretty funny. It's like, all right, I own the team. I'm paying myself. I'm gonna what's he gonna do? Insert himself into the starting lineup,
of course he is, yeah.
right? And then just take him out whenever. And what if the coach has a dispute? He's gonna be like, hey, I pay your salary.
Yeah.
I
Shut
own
up,
you,
man.
Yeah. This is my team. That he's a player owner. That's really
amazing.
interesting. Yeah. So I thought that was obviously very interesting to hear. But no, obviously I think he has to be if not the oldest.
Oldest
American
player in the
sports,
NHL.
Right,
Yeah,
in the NHL by far. But
right.
I mean, Tom Brady's 40 in the NFL. I'm trying to think of who's the oldest baseball player.
It's not 45.
Yeah, no, not at all. And the NBA guys don't play past
he's got to be the
37,
oldest
38.
player,
So
yeah.
I think he is the oldest active sports player in North American sports right now.
It's amazing that hockey players can play so long, too.
Yeah,
it's
for how
a
physical the
tough
game is.
Yeah.
Right, and it's a long season, 82 games, right?
And if you get into the playoffs, that's another 2 full months you're playing, too. 2.5. Well, yeah, the 2 full months.
Yeah.
So
I think
those are high tense games.
I think
too.
that speaks to the way that he prepares himself.
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously in the off season, the way that he trains, the way that he diets. So very much high respect in regard. But yeah, the fact that he owns this team is. He will be having the final say in everything.
Absolutely. It's like a little bit of that LeVar Ball situation going on over in Lithuania. LeVar Ball is now the head coach somehow. And no, we're not going to talk about it, but he's the head coach over for that team. So this does remind me a little bit of that. And I was actually reading an article, Ted Turner, the guy that kind of created Turner Sports, TNT, CNN. He actually, at one point, coached the Atlanta Braves during a season once. The coach was out. He couldn't get anybody else to coach. It was actually illegal for him to do so, but the MLB didn't find out he was in the dugout in uniform as the head coach in time to kind of reprimand him during the game, so they had to wait till after the game. But Ted Turner once also, as an owner, coached the team, didn't play for the Atlanta Braves like Jaromir Jagr's doing. But he actually coached the Atlanta Braves. I found that out the other day, so it's funny that Jaromir Jagr is in the same situation.
Very much.
Just talking about, we got about a minute and a half left in this NHL segment. Jaromir Jagr, obviously one of the best players to ever play. Real good guy, too. Fun guy to be around. I can remember the last couple of years during the All-Star games. He really had a lot of fun. I saw the NHL All-Star game was last weekend, and they said that he went from 2003 to 2016 not making the All-Star game. That was the longest gap, I think, in sports history for a guy to make an All-Star game between years. So just shows you how long this guy has played. But obviously, good luck to him in the Czech Republic. I hope he still plays hockey. I hope there's obviously the chance that he could come back to the NHL if he can play. If he can't play, then you don't want it to become a charity case. But hopefully he can play for the Olympic team, too. I'd definitely watch the games against the Czech Republic, especially the USA games, even though the rosters aren't good anymore because the NHL players. But I hope he makes the Olympic team. That would be very interesting to watch, to have a real legend in there and play. And I hope, by the way, Teemu Selanne comes out of retirement and plays the Olympics. I haven't heard anything, but I thought about him for the. I think he plays for the Finland team, for him to be in it too. But let's get Jaromir Jagr in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So, that's about the end of our 5-minute segment, so we'll wait the last 10 seconds here. But I think we'll move on to our final thoughts on the podcast. We have a little bit of time, about 3 minutes left. So, Jared, do you have yours? Because I do not have mine right now.
I do. My final thought is going back to the NFL and kind of piggybacking off of what we talked about earlier with the Alex Smith trade to the Redskins and the essential ripple effect that this now has with Kirk Cousins and the multitude of other teams that are now going to be looking to his services. I mean, you can name the list. The New York Jets need a quarterback. The Denver Broncos, the Cleveland Browns, the Arizona Cardinals. I know there's a few teams in there that I'm missing, but there are at least 5 or 6 teams that need a quarterback. Luckily, this NFL upcoming draft is very rich in quarterback depth. But if you can get a veteran quarterback like Kirk Cousins, I'm sure teams would prefer that as opposed to a rookie. The only difference is you're going to have to pay about $100 or $150 million for him as opposed to a very small rookie contract. So I think it'll be very interesting. Von Miller of the Denver Broncos actually came out and said, he said that Kirk Cousins can take us over the edge. Ooh, so I think that is actually a shot to the quarterbacks that are currently in-house
because they all suck.
With the Denver Broncos. Yeah, with Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch. So if I'm those two guys, I'm going to go to Von Miller and tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, man, you don't trust me or what? And if I was Von Miller, I'd say, hell no, I don't.
Hell no, I have an Old Spice commercial ad. I don't need to care what you think.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think Kirk Cousins in the right situation can do very well. But do I think he can lead a team to the Super Bowl? I do not. But I do know one thing. He's going to get paid.
Yeah, he is going to get paid.
Yes, he is.
Okay, so for my final thought, it's really just thought about sports in general. The next couple weeks, there's actually stuff on the weekends that's big. Obviously, we have the Super Bowl this weekend. You have the NBA Finals come up. You have the Daytona 500. So sports is not, even though it's kind of a tough time to watch sports necessarily, sports are not completely going away with the NFL ending. And hey, in 2 years we might have the XFL to watch during this time. So just wanted to give a shout out. Sports are still doing a good thing right now, and they're still watchable even after the NFL ends. And soon we'll be at the as far as the NFL goes. Soon after this week, we will be at the NFL draft soon enough. So this is the last. Obviously, we'll talk about the. Next week in the podcast, we'll talk about the Super Bowl and all that stuff. But the end of football is coming this weekend. So always a sad time, in everybody's for everybody, every football fan's mind. There you go. You hear the music right there. That means the end of the Cover 2 podcast is coming. Just real quick, we both predicted that the Patriots would win. I have the Patriots winning 35-31. Jared 27-20. But the good thing is we don't have the Eagles.
Let's go Patriots.
I know that makes Jared happy. So for Nick Neenan,
I'm Jared Smith.
He's Jared Smith. We'll be back next week talking all about the Super Bowl and talking about what happened during the Super Bowl game. We'll be back next week.